You see these perfectly well-constructed Godzilla and Kong figures, officially licensed, gone past the safety regulations of official children's toys? What if we put all of that away? Yeah, all of that away. Instead, bootlegs. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the Godzilla bootlegs that I own. In case you don't know what a bootleg is, and you're probably living under a rock, but sum it all up, unlicensed products of characters that are extremely popular and require a lot of money to use. Usually bootlegs mimic the already existing products for those characters. For example, Plants vs. Zombies and their plush toys, or Super Mario and their questionable action figures. But I actually do not own any of the official counterparts for the figures in these videos, or this video, not these videos, but I will be comparing them to official Godzilla merchandise that is in their size category. So join me. Today, we're looking at the strange world of Godzilla bootlegs. The first of these products are these little tiny Godzilla minifigures. You can find these on Amazon for relatively cheap prices. So we're going to be looking through these one by one. And the first figure I'm going to be starting off with is Godzilla Earth. Now, this is actually the first one of these little tiny figures that I got because I thought it resembled Godzilla Phileas. Now, these don't have much to them. They are very small, about like 1.5 to 2 inches, and they have decent paint application, especially for a bootleg. You expect these things to be sloppy. Something that is sloppy, however, is this guy's eyeball. See that? Not even in the correct socket. Now, this actually has some articulation. He moves his arms full 360. My finger's covering up what you can actually see it. My camera almost fell. And his legs are able to do the same. At least I think, yeah. Absolutely, they can do it. For paint, very sloppily put on eyes, but other than that, I actually think he has some really good paint, especially in the dorsal plates here. They look really nice, and the highlights on the claws and the connector points of the arms and legs are actually pretty decently well put on there. The next of these little tiny bootleg figures is this King Ghidorah. Now, this Ghidorah is actually the biggest of the bunch. Here he is next to the Minecraft movie Steve figure. He is pretty big. He's next to the Godzilla Phileas. If his heads were upright, I'd say these things scale pretty well. But we're not here to talk about Steve or Godzilla. Let's talk about this Ghidorah. This Ghidorah, I'm pretty sure, is a bootleg of a tiny model kit. I mean, after I adjust the camera, let's see here. These wings actually pop out, especially this one, very easily. Yeah, this is actually more of a rubbery material for the wings, but everything else is more or less hard plastic. Actually, no, that's a lie. Everything is kind of like hard rubber. The heads also move, but they can't move 360 because of the other heads. These heads can also pop out, but I've done it so many times, I don't want to risk breaking this thing because I have no idea where to get a replacement one. And the legs also move. They move together. And they're also not really lined up properly. So he surprisingly stands very well. And again, not a lot of paint. Mainly just it is gold color, which I'm assuming is just the color of plastic. The only paint I see is the eyes. And, you know, for a bootleg Ghidorah, the eyes aren't that bad. I mean, yeah, they're a bit derpy looking, but I think that's fault to the sculpt, not the paint. Especially the middle head there. They painted the inside of the middle head's mouth red, and I think this would look 10,000 times better. Alright, this next one is actually a bit of a weirdo. It is the female Muto. Now, why is this weird? Because, well, the Mutos, in of themselves, they barely have any figures at all. I'm pretty sure most of these are based off the gashapons of them, but Muto figures in general are pretty expensive and hard to find. Bootleggers get their hands on the most ridiculous of molds. And this one also has a bit of warping at the legs, but it can still stand. Now, despite these being bootlegs, I actually do not think any of these are bad at all. If you're trying to find cheap little tiny Godzilla figures, then these are probably your best bet. Just don't get ones that have too sloppily of paint applied, especially the burning Godzillas. But I'm going off topic. The Muto has no joints whatsoever. She is more or less a display piece. And although her front two legs are white, which is inaccurate, she still looks exactly like the Mutos from 2014. I don't really know what else to add to this figure. It just looks like a Muto. It's fine to look at, no joints, barely any paint except for the eyeballs. But it's a fine figure. If you want a Muto that is small, probably try to get this. Now, another bit of a more obscure monster, Mogera from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. This one actually has joints in the legs. The legs do move. Kind of rotate. That's really it. And this probably has the best paint out of all of them, except for, I'll tell you which one when we get to it. But he is a bit at an awkward stance due to the legs being warped. Can't really get him to stand perfectly straight up. But still a fine looking figure. I mean, the arms don't move, but that's pretty common with Mogera figures. Tail and the blade look pretty good. I'm assuming that these are scanned versions of other existing figures, but I don't know how the bootlegging process works, so I don't really know what else to say. Good paint. Legs is the only part that moves, and it's a more obscure monster. Alright, now for an interesting one. This is the Wart Dog. Now, a lot of you would probably assume right off the bat that this is official, but if you look at official Wart Dogs, they are actually brown instead of red. And this is very obviously red. Now, the Wart Dog is the only one that I got that comes from the Monsterverse. No, the Muto, I'm stupid. But this thing looks like Twizzlers with, I don't know, like milk chocolate Hershey's for the beak and gumballs for the eyes. Hershey's. Wait, I'm getting my words mixed up. But yeah, this is quite an interesting figure. It is not, doesn't move at all, no joints, no whatever. But it's just a red Wart Dog. You could use this as like a female Wart Dog. I don't know what the purpose of this would be except for just wanting one. Now, this is sculpted after the only Wart Dog figure in existence, so this might be your only option if you can't find the real one. Now for probably the most boring one, Biollante Flower Beast form. This is the most boring figure ever. It's the second smallest, only beaten by the Wart Dog. Like, let me compare this to the Godzilla Earth. Like, this is not flower form Biollante. But all these little vine part are actually rubber, which is pretty cool. But it is just in the most boring museum pose. But then again, Biollante Flower Beast form doesn't really have any cool poses to put it into. And it's just not really anything. It's not bad by any means, but it just lacks in comparison to the other figures. Alright, I have saved probably the best for last. Megalon and Gigan, the Showa era Gigan, is one of the worst ones, mostly because of the warping between the wings and his arm over here. I tried to move this arm, but it is actually glued on there. And these wings, the inside of them actually aren't painted. So that's kind of a bummer. If they were spread out more, then they would actually be, improve the figure a lot. Also, not to mention, those little parts right there are actually miscolored. Those are supposed to be silver, not gold. But I'm assuming they confuse it with the rest of the body. But if you're bootlegging something, why wouldn't you look at like a reference picture or something? Not to mention his little belly saw is not silver also. His mouth also has a bit of warping, but it's barely noticeable. But Megalon is the reason I saved this for last. This is probably the best sculpt out of all of them. It is so well made, it feels like, a big part of why this figure sculpt is good is because how it feels. It feels official, even though it's made of the same material as all the other ones. Like, this is really nice to look at. If you looked at this and, like, you told me that this was real, I would probably believe you. I mean, it's very, very good looking. Whoever did this one is really, really good at bootlegging stuff. I mean, obviously, this is another one of the ones that doesn't have any joints, but, you know, it has proper rubber parts in areas, which, you know, means that they really, really went in and tried to make this look like an official figure that went past the regulations. But obviously, nothing on the feet, no copyright anywhere, which is a dead giveaway that it is a bootleg. I don't really know what else to say. Just kidding. That's right, we're comparing these with official pieces of Godzilla merchandise. In the middle is the Godzilla Earth, Megalon, and King Ghidorah. On the left is the 65th anniversary keychains of Millennium Godzilla and Mechagodzilla 1974. And on the right is the Jada Toys Metal Figs Godzilla Evolved and Shimo. Now, these aren't really a fair comparison because these are made out of metal. So, they aren't really viable. These, however, are viable because they're made out of a very similar material of rubber. Now, as you can see, they are much smaller than you can imagine. I've been, like, how big they are compared to my hand, even though you've probably been noticing that for the whole video. Yeah, the Ghidorah is obviously the biggest, just barely beating these guys in height. But if I were to say which one to get, probably these ones, unless you really, really want a tiny, tiny one. Now for a bit more of a product that you might recognize, Imperial Godzilla. This is actually a bootleg Imperial Godzilla. He has customized a little bit. See the big red lips that the Imperial Godzilla official figures have? I did that myself. I painted this guy to look like the real one. But only the lips was the only things I customized. As you can see, it is probably very, very, like, I don't know, if you showed this to someone and told them it was Imperial Godzilla, they would probably believe it. I mean, there's less green on it than I would like it to have, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't look like Imperial Godzilla. It's just like him, except for the lips that I had to paint on myself. Obviously, nothing at the bottom showing that it was made by Toho, just made in China. But yeah, I mean, it has some articulation. Arms, the legs, and the tail all move, and it is soft vinyl like a movie monster series, so it can pop off. See, there's nothing inside of him. Very, very sad because I remember Monster Island Buddies found a dirt bike in his bootleg Rodan. And just for a bit of size comparison, this guy is pretty tiny. Obviously not as tiny as the other ones I showed you. This is a Playmates pre-evolved Godzilla 2024. And this is the movie Monster Series Godzilla 1999. I keep saying movie Monster Series, but not movie Monster Series. Let's start doing that. I guess this thing does its job as mimicking the real thing, because at G-Fest I actually did think this was the real Imperial Godzilla. The non-painted lips should have given it away, but I still was fooled by it. So it did its job, I guess. And now for the last of my really strange and small bootleg Godzilla collection. A Godzilla Poppet. Yes, I know, Poppets have not been relevant in like 4 years. And funny enough, I got this 4 years ago. It's a Poppet. I mean, there's nothing much to it. This could be excused as just a dinosaur with spikes, but it's not that. It's very, very similar to Godzilla. It's very squishy. Like, this is like a stress toy, which is what a Poppet is. It's a fidget. I really don't know what to say about this. I mean, if we get this guy back in here, this is the biggest one. I unintentionally did smallest to biggest in order of these bootlegs, but yeah, this actually isn't the last Godzilla bootleg I have. I have a bootleg Skullcrawler in my storage, so who knows, maybe when I get that out, I'll do another video on these. I'll probably have more by then as well. But this is just like the most harmless bootleg. I don't even think that like the listing would have said this is Godzilla. It'd probably say like dinosaur or something. I don't even know if it's still up. You could go look for yourself. And I actually used to have 2 of these. There was another one. Well, instead of green, it was black. It was like the exact same of this. I had to give that one away, but I still have this one.